Hey, everybody, we're going to wait for just another minute or so for a few more people to jump on before we get started. Uh, if you're joining live, thanks for joining. If you are watching this later on, I'm going to put a link in this so that you can skip past some of this early part, and I'll let you know when we're going to get started here. Okay, so if you are joining us live, thanks for joining me today. If you are watching this later on, welcome. If you're here because this, being the middle aged man, the person that is in constant pain, doesn't feel good, is really not what your ultimate destiny is or what your goal was. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I tend to wax a bit nostalgic from time to time. And the other day, I was thumbing through some old books of mine from some early mentors, Frank Zane and Larry Scott. Now, Frank and Larry were two of the early legends in bodybuilding. Frank was a contemporary of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Larry came before Arnold. And these two people were just amazing, amazing mentors of mine. And as a kid, I had posters, I had cutouts of Arnold, Frank, and Larry, along with other idols of mine, Michael Jordan, Sylvester Stallone as Rocky or Rambo, hanging up in my bedroom. I don't think any of us grew up with pictures of Homer Simpson or Al Bundy uh, hanging on the wall, dreaming that we would be the person with significant back pain and a big gut. But somewhere along the way, that's who many guys ended up feeling like, more like Homer than Arnold, and Al Bundy than Michael Jordan. Yo Adrian turned into I've fallen and I can't get up. Now, I can't believe I got myself here is a very common thing that I hear from many people. In fact, I had a client the other day say, I can't believe I look like this. I'm so embarrassed and I feel like a fraud. He was struggling to get in and out of his $110,000 daily driver sports car due to a debilitating back pain. And that was the thing that sent him stumbling towards me. He was a textbook case of the old saying that a healthy man has 1,000 wishes and a sick man only has one. He had the watch, the car, and the career, but not the body to enjoy it. He had traded movement, strength, and energy for money. You see, you can't buy health, you can't buy strength, and you can't buy your way out of pain. He had traded his health for financial success, his freedom of movement for more monetary success and more monetary wealth. And if you sacrifice your health for chasing more, what's going to happen is you'll find that at a certain point, all the money in the world can't match the feeling of moving freely and living pain free. The other day, I ran into an old friend who had lost a lot of weight and he had gotten himself into better shape. I was shocked to see him and I said, how did you do it? He joked that he had stopped eating donuts. But seriously, he said, I realized that the Ferraris, the Porsches, the boat, the house, like none of it really mattered if I couldn't enjoy them in a body that allowed me to move free and that I was proud of. And he said, and honestly, Steve, I know people were laughing at me behind my back because no one cares about the expensive stuff that you wear or drive if you're a total fat ass. I needed self respect and I needed respect from others. The backward slide that most people make when they start to lose their health and fitness comes when they try to work out the way that they did before they got hurt or injured. And then 10 years and 40 pounds and a dozen or so skipped workouts later, they wake up realizing that they don't feel like Arnold anymore. They feel more like Homer. They thought that they'd age like Magnum PI, but they ended up looking like Higgins. And so the question is, What would your life look like if you were able to move pain-free, if you felt strong again, and you actually enjoyed the body that you worked hard to earn? So today, I want to walk through how to get out of pain without endless doctor visits and lengthy rehab sessions. So, in this master class, let's cover what it isn't first, okay? This is not medical advice. I am not here to tell you to do something or to not do something that your doctor has told you to do. So please don't mistake this for any type of medical advice. This is for educational purposes only and maybe for entertainment purposes. It's also not designed to be complete and comprehensive. It is also not intended to replace your doctor's advice. It's important that if you're working with qualified healthcare professionals, that you understand how to work with them to get your life into a better state. And that one of the things that we'll talk about later on is why doctors and other healthcare professionals are a part of your team, but they are not the ones that should be dictating everything that you do. Ultimately, personal accountability and personal responsibility are on you to make sure that you stay out of pain and that you heal your pain appropriately. Now, I want to talk to you about a good friend and a client of mine that came to me after a few years of us not working together. And he came back in and he said, "Hey, I've got some pain in my shoulders, my elbows, my hips, my lower back." The list went on and on. Now, my friend Todd had struggled to run, race, and compete in a race that he loved doing. So here's a guy that is driven, he's dedicated. Like many of you, he's a true professional. He's a person that is uh, at the pinnacle of his career, has achieved a certain amount of success, both monetarily and in his career, and yet he was in constant pain. He came to me and said, "I need to get out of pain. I need to feel better. And I want to do better on this Spartan race that I do every year." So we took him through the process. And after working through the Evolve method, what happened is he went from not even being able to hang from a bar because of the aches and pains in his elbows, his wrists, and his shoulders, to then being able to do pull-ups with 55 pounds around his waist. He couldn't bend over to pick up a bar and now can deadlift a significant amount of weight. He could not squat past just falling into a chair and now does squats with a barbell and a significant amount of weight on his back. No issues, no problems. In addition, we were able to take 50 minutes off of his race time. Year on year, he ran over 50 minutes faster in his Spartan race. But not only that, he followed up the Spartan by doing his first marathon at age 56. He's stronger, he's leaner, and he's far more confident than he was before. Now, another client of mine had come to me with hip pain, back pain, and knee pain. And through the Evolve process, we got freedom of movement. He's lost over 40 pounds. He does hip thrusts with over 400 pounds. And this 55, 56-year-old grandfather now is able to move. And when he runs into people that he used to see years ago, but hasn't seen for quite some time, they say, "Wow, you're jacked. You look amazing. What are you doing?" So I want to walk you through what the framework is. You see, it's not just about looking better. When we're in pain, the number one thing that we want to do is to get out of pain. And so the framework that I follow is a three-part framework where we assess, we understand, and then we progress. Under the assess, we want to understand what your pain and your limitations are. We also want to understand where your movement faults are. And we'll get into what that means in just a few minutes here. After we assess, we need to understand, and primarily I need you to understand these three things. Number one, what proper movement is. Number two, the three different communication methods that your body uses to communicate to you. And then number three, the three major modalities that we'll be using to get you out of pain. From there, we move on to the progress phase. Progress is about we need to first get you out of pain. Second, lengthen the time between the pain incidences. And then third, build a bulletproof system. And so your back, your knees, your shoulder, your hips, whatever it is that was painful before, never go back to where they were. So the first thing we do is we assess, we don't guess. When we're making an assessment to determine where you're at, it's important that we look at where your pain is coming from. Now, we'll talk a little bit later about why pain is like a crying baby. But the first thing is to identify the pain, identify what the pain is, and identify where the pain is coming from. Second thing we look for is, where are you limited? If you have limitations in your daily life, if you can't get in and out of the car without pain, if you have a hard time bending over to pick something up, if you dropped it, those are limitations that we need to make note of, and we need to make sure that we understand fully where you're limited. You see, you don't have low back pain necessarily just because your low back is tight. The limitation is most likely an issue with several muscles or a system not working and functioning well together. And so we have to understand, what is it that is truly limiting you, or what are you not able to do? So think about this like an opportunity cost. Opportunity cost in life and business and finance is that if I want something, I'm giving up something else. And so everything has a trade-off. If I am limited, what is it? Or if I have pain, I'm limited. If I'm limited, what am I limited in? What am I being prevented from doing? The third thing that we look at is where your movement faults are. We'll dig a little bit deeper into that in just a moment. After we go into the assessment, we move on to understanding. Now, I need you to understand what the proper movement patterns are. There are a few movement patterns that all of us as human beings move or utilize. Those proper movement patterns are consistent across the board. Every single person should be able to do these movement patterns in a very consistent and functional way. There are three communication tools that your body uses: feeling, sensation, and emotion. We'll dive into what each one of those are in just a minute. And then there are three major modalities. There's unloaded movement, loaded movement, and then there's tissue mobilization. Think about smashing and flossing. So let's talk about proper movement. Every person should be able to push, pull, have the ability to have some sort of effective gait. So think walk, run, sprint, and jump. As a side note, when is the last time you sprinted or jumped? You see, many of us, once we get away from childhood, stop sprinting or we stop jumping. If you use it, or if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And so gait, or our ability to move, locomotion, goes down over time. And think about the 70 to 80-year-old man who does the old man shuffle, or who swings the leg around every time he walks. He doesn't have an effective gait because he hasn't been utilizing the proper movement patterns to keep him moving and functioning well. Now, I've got clients in their 70s, I've had clients in their 80s that move and function well because we make sure we address the proper movement. I also know people in their 50s who cannot move and who have the old man shuffle as early as in their 50s. Proper movement also extends to the bending or the hinging. So we should be able to bend and hinge appropriately. Think about this like bending over to pick something up, hinging to set something down. Squat, twist, or rotation, and lunge. These are all essential movements that every human being should do. And so if we are trying to address where your pain is coming from, we need to figure out, where are you limited in these normal movement patterns? Every single person has imbalances, and every single person has faults in these areas. So we need to understand where yours are. This is where the proliferation of videos on the internet can be somewhat insidious. And let me explain what I mean by that. The other day I was talking to a client. He said, "Oh, I forgot to reach out to you. I was dealing with some pain in my back, and I am just so used to going online and looking up some videos that I found this video and I did this exercise, but it made the thing worse." So here's the problem you run into. The social media in particular, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever you get your information from, is inundated with videos saying, if you have this type of pain, do this. They sound really cute. They sound amazing. Like the people are very confident in what they put out there. And so you may then go do that particular exercise and find that that exercise is the exact opposite of what you should be doing when your body cramps up or your pain worsens. It becomes more intense and sidelines you for even longer. Your proper movement or your improper movement needs to be assessed as to where is it coming from? Where are the faults coming from? Where's the weakness in your movement relative to each one of these movement patterns? If you were to just cherry pick and DIY your way to better movement, you're going to struggle if you don't have a proper assessment first. So let's talk about pain. If you're like me, you've been around kids quite a bit. I had 3 that were babies at one point. Now they are beautiful adults, but when they were babies, they cried. And babies cry when they're tired. They cry when they're sad. They cry when they're hurt. They cry when they're scared, lonely, hungry, and have a soiled diaper, etc. You see, babies cry is a form of communication, and pain is your body's way of crying. Pain is just a communication tool that your body uses. Now, oftentimes when we feel pain, or what we recognize as pain, the initial thing to do is to stop. We stop moving. We stop whatever it is that we're doing in that moment. And generally, we have fear, anxiety, and or apprehension. Now, think about the last time you were in a fearful state. What happened? Your body locked up. It got tight. You became defensive. When you become tight and defensive, you then make the problem worse. And so if you make the problem worse by being fearful and stopping your movement, you're not even getting to the point where you understand what the cry is. What is your body telling you? So the first thing I tell my clients is understand that pain, like the crying baby, has a very nuanced approach to understanding. What I mean by that is each one of my kids, when they would cry, I could tell over time the difference between the way they would cry. If they wanted to be picked up and held, there was a certain way of crying. If they wanted, if they had a dirty diaper, there was another way. If they were scared, it was a totally different cry, right? Moms, dad, you get what I'm talking about. Your body is the same way. If you can pause and understand that pain is just your body communicating something to you, and instead of being fearful of that, stopping and saying, okay, so something's happening, but what is it? When we pause and we dig a little bit deeper, we get to the point where we then start to understand that communication mechanism from the body. So your body has essentially 3 communication tools. What you call pain, I call feeling, sensation, and emotion. So think of feeling like you feel something in the body, but you may not be able to verbalize it. This could be something where you're like, I don't know, there's something here. I don't know what it is, but there's something. There's something over here. There's something down here. When I do this, something doesn't feel right. You know there's something there, but you can't necessarily describe what it is. So a feeling generally is something that you experience in your body, but you might not be able to verbalize it. Now, a sensation, think about this like tension or tightness or tingling. If I were to walk outside, it's a beautiful sunny day, but there's a light breeze out there. And so I would sense the warmth of the sun on my skin, and I would also sense the air breathing across my skin. I would be able to sense those things. Now, emotion is different. Emotion is where we tend to place a label, not good or bad. We just place a label on it. And that's something that we experience where there's some meaning behind it. I feel sad. I feel desperate. I feel disappointed. You see, pain, when you experience pain, let's say you've got low back pain today. you're not just experiencing pain in your lower back. What's happening is your body is communicating to you that something is wrong, that you need to pay attention to it, right? It's the baby's cry. So if you were to dig a little bit deeper, you might feel something in there. And you say, there's something going on in my lower back. What is it? And then as you go a little bit further, you say, well, it's not really in my lower back. It's actually in my hip. Oh, you know what? It's in the right side of my hip, but kind of more towards the butt bone. Okay, so now I understand where the feeling is. Okay, well, what's the sensation? Okay, I've got it's not sharp, it's not shooting. I've got some restriction. I have some tightness. Okay, I put my hand back there. I feel I've got a little bit tenderness. Okay, so I've got tenderness now on the right side back of my hip. Right now, I'm taking pain, and I'm going from this idea of pain and going down to say, I know what the feeling is. I know where it's at. I know what the sensation is. Well, is there an emotion tied to it? You see, oftentimes, what I find with clients when we start to unravel where their pain is the emotion is tied to it, is living inside of your body. That emotion literally lives inside of you. And this is, get me, guys, this is not some woo-woo type of thing, okay? Your emotions are generated from the limbic portion of your brain. Now, the limbic portion of your brain communicates with the rest of your nervous system, and oftentimes leapfrogs over, so to speak, your prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is where you think through and you have cognition and you solve problems. The limbic portion is just where everything lights up and you feel sensations, feelings, and emotions. And so when you feel something going on in your back, you might feel desperate. Oh, not again. Or you feel something, you say, oh, but I've been doing so good. And you feel disappointed. Or you feel something and you say, I'm so sad, I'm old. Like, this is old. This is what it means. I'm Al Bundy. I'm Homer Simpson. And you feel these emotions. Those emotions live inside of you. They are real things. They are communications from the limbic portion of your brain to the rest of your nervous system that then tightens up your muscle even more. And that lives in your body. Okay. Again, not woo-woo. This is something that your nervous system does, and it communicates to the other soft tissue, your muscles, your ligaments, your tendons, your fascial layer. It communicates to the soft tissue of your body to either make you more of what you're feeling, sensing, and experiencing, or make you less of that. All right. So we have to know what these three communication tools are when it comes to pain. Your body is again, your body's a crying baby. It's telling you that something is up. And so if you dig deeper and you say, okay, well, where am I feeling it? What's the sensation? And is there emotion tied to it? You now have the ability to go a little bit deeper. Now, I want to come back to my client, Todd, that I talked about earlier. You saw him triumphant at the end of his race, and he had beat his previous time by 50 minutes. But I want to take you back to where he was when we first started. This is not it. This is further along in the process. When we first started and he was in pain, here's a guy that up to 55 years of his life could never even in a million years imagine bending over to touch his toes. Didn't have the flexibility. Well, as we dug into the feelings, sensations, and emotions that he was experiencing, we figured out what needed to happen to improve his mobility so that he could function in a fluid way, right? And so what happened was we started to peel back. Okay, what are you feeling in your body? Great. What are the sensations that you're experiencing? Are there emotions that are tied to that? And Todd, just like you, feel feelings, sensations, and emotions. Once we identified those, we realized that, hey, wait a minute. It feels uncomfortable, right? There's a sensation of tightness when you bend over to touch your toes. There's an emotion of fear because you've thrown your hips and your back out before. But what if in this very small controlled environment, we set the fear aside and we just played with the range of motion? What would happen? Could we experience those feelings and those sensations in a different way? And so we did. And bit by bit, we started to chip away at the movement faults, and we started to chip away of the lack of flexibility. We started to chip away at the pain. And we realized that it wasn't really pain. It was just tightness and limitation. And that tightness and limitation then compounded into fear, compounded into disappointment, compounded into these other feelings, sensations, emotions that made him feel like I'm a stiff guy that just will never be able to move and function, and I'll never be able to perform better than I am. But you can see here in this photo that, I think at best he could get maybe a half an inch below the knee. This is an old picture, by the way. He can get his palms down on the ground when he stretches and he hinges forward at this point. So by digging into the feelings, sensations, emotions, we started to play around with and explore movement and range of motion that allowed him to understand his body better so that he could get the type of movement that he was searching for. Now, once we understand, we have to go into the three major modalities that it takes to make the progress happen. So we've dug in and we've understood a little bit about, okay, this pain is not just pain, it's the baby crying, but what is the baby telling us? Okay, the baby's telling us that we're tight. The baby's telling us that we're tight in the left hip. The baby's telling us that that left hip is giving us fear and anxiety because we've thrown our back out before, we've thrown our hips out before, and it makes us walk like somebody shoved a stick up our rear end. So we understand that at that point. So then we say, okay, now that we understand where the movement faults are, we understand the sensations, the feelings, and the emotions. Now we start to get some rubber to the road, and we say, okay, what are the major modalities that we're chasing or that we're going to utilize to fix the problem? So the first thing is to go through what we call unloaded movement. So think about this as stretching or body weight resistance. But before we go further, I want to just reframe the idea of stretching. Stretching is the most commonly misunderstood and misused modality that people talk about. You will never see me prescribing a full stretching routine. And the reason that is I should have brought a rubber band with me, but I forgot. Imagine that my pen here is like a rubber band. If I pull on that rubber band, what's going to happen is there's going to be a point over here and a point over here where they're still pretty loose, but there's a point in the middle that becomes very tense. And so when you stretch a muscle, you're really only lengthening the tissue at one range of point in there, right? And so stretching is overutilized to get out of pain because your pain might be up here in the hip and you're stretching the hamstring, but it's only stretching down here. But the problem is up in this area or maybe down in this area. And so you're only hitting one thing, one part when you're stretching. And so understand that stretching is probably the least effective to get you out of pain. That doesn't mean we don't use it, but we have to think about it in terms of a total system. Stretching is effective if you take this frame of reference. How you're going to utilize stretching is you're going to think about it relative to strength. You see, if I can't bend over and touch my toes because I'm tight and limited, it's not just because my muscles, my ligaments, and my tendons are tight. It's because my body doesn't have the strength to put me down into that position and then allow me to come back up. And so your body's always going to protect, and so it will lock up and it will tighten the areas that it needs to in order to protect what's happening. And so the goal of stretching is not to turn you into Gumby or not to get you to the point where you can go toe-to-toe with any yogi out there. The goal of stretching is to improve your strength through a range of motion. And so if here's me and I want to bend forward, the goal is to get me to the point where I have the strength to bend forward and then come back up, right? If you don't have the strength to go all the way down and all the way back up, your body will never give you that range of motion that you're looking for. So I hope we've reframed stretching in a way that you're not going to look at this as like the, yes, that's the best tool, or a, no, I should never do this. People say stretching doesn't work. Well, it does, but it's one part of a larger modality. Now, another thing to think about when we talk about unloaded movement is that you're doing body weight resistance. So this could be something where if you are tight through the hips, we've got you doing some sort of lunge type movement to open that up, but you're just doing it with your body weight. Or let's say that your knees are tight and I've got you into a deeper lunge where your knees are coming out over your toes. And by doing that, you're only utilizing your body your body weight for resistance. So obviously there's resistance. Gravity is pulling down on you, but you're just using your body weight. Stretching and body weight movement are two of the most basic things that we do when we start to utilize, or when we start the plan to get you into a better freedom of movement. If you think about, like, 99% of your day is unloaded movement, right? Getting in and out of your car, standing up, walking to the refrigerator, going to work, doing all of the things that you do. 99% of your day is unloaded movement. If you're working out, then it's unloaded movement is probably, let's say, 90% of your day, right? Even if you're working out for like an hour a day, you still have the majority of your day where you have unloaded movement. So we need to get you very good at unloaded movement. Now, loaded movement is where we can push the boundaries a little bit further and help you to get out of pain by putting some load onto these movements. And so if we go back to what we talked about before with some of these basic movement patterns, so let's take the squat. Can you squat down with your body weight? And if you can, great. Well, then over time, could we add a little bit of load? Could we add some dumbbells in your hand to get you to go a little bit further? So resistance that we add to movement allows you to give more strength to those muscles that will lengthen them out and give you better movement over time. So think about that. You're not just trying to stretch the muscle, but you're trying to make that muscle stronger. And more than just the muscle, we're trying to think about things in terms of a movement system or a chain of movement. If we can get that chain working effectively, if we can get you the system of movement working effectively, then it's going to work out well. A good analogy for this would be that if you're in business and you say, well, I've got an entire service profit chain that I need to fix, but I'm only going to work on my marketing. Well, you're probably going to miss out on increases or sustained increase in the business, because if you're only focusing on one aspect of your service profit chain, you're going to miss out on all of the different pieces that lead you to continued repeat customers. So resistance added to a movement helps you to get a little bit further down what we call the movement chain. Okay. Now, the third major modality that we need to address is soft tissue work. Now, soft tissue work can be as simple as I'm taking something and I'm utilizing it to smash against the muscle. So for many of you, this could be, you're probably familiar with utilizing a foam roller. If you have worked with a coach at any point in time, maybe they've had you take a lacrosse ball or a larger ball and roll out or smash against a muscle. And what we're doing with any type of smashing is we're just communicating to the nervous system that it's okay for that muscle to relax, calm down. Flossing is a term that we use where essentially, just like you're flossing your teeth, we're going to do the same thing to your tissue. So a floss, for instance, might be if I have a tight pec muscle, I'm going to take that a ball, I'm going to smash into that pec muscle, and then maybe I'm just moving my arm around and I'm flossing through that, and that pins the muscle down as I move against the apparatus, and it starts to open everything up. Now, another soft tissue tool that we use is compression. So whether it's compression boots or massage therapy, creating compression in the muscle or in the entire soft tissue system helps to create better blood flow and can help to help to aid in healing and recovery, but also gives us better range of motion and better movement. We'll talk at another time about why that's so important and where the research sits with that. Now, one important one to think through, and one, quite frankly, that I see people using wrong all the time, is vibration. Vibration it can be very, very effective at helping to improve soft tissue. But this doesn't mean that you just go buy an expensive vibration gun and sit here and go like this on your muscle and think that that's going to improve everything, right? Vibration essentially creates a repetitive compression into your muscle that is disrupting what your current nervous system's patterns are. And so your nervous system is saying, stay tight, stay tight, stay tight in this particular area. Well, if you just go in there and you hit it with compression, the research is pretty clear, and my own experience with my clients is pretty clear. It doesn't do very much. And so vibration with movement is very effective. And so I've got a compression gun that I use. And what I'll do is, if I've got a tight shoulder, for instance, I'll come in here with the compression gun, but I will use a flex and relax, contract, relax method, or I will go through movement as I'm using that vibration. What the vibration does is it disrupts the nervous system so that you can move through that range of motion better. Think about this like the time when you went to the dentist and the dentist needed to give you a shot for your root canal over here. And so he grabbed your cheek over here and he started shaking it. And what this does is it distracts you by turning your nervous system's focus into this side while that needle goes in this side. So vibration tools are the same concept. We are distracting the nervous system while we go through this modality to get more range of motion. Now, as we get into the third part of the process, we need to focus on what does the progress look like? And essentially, I chunk this down into three basic areas. Number one, we want to get you out of pain. You're not able to move effectively if you're in pain. You're not able to live your life effectively. In fact, what we're doing is your brain is splitting its attention from protection or trying to heal or trying to slow you down and then do the daily tasks that you have. And so you're literally not your full self if you're in pain. So the number one thing we have to do is get you out of pain. So after we've assessed and evaluated where the pain is, what are the sensations, feelings, and emotions that you're experiencing, after we've determined what the movement faults are, then we can say, let's do some things to get you out of pain right now. Now, I would say 8 to 9 times out of 10, I can get somebody out of pain relatively quickly. And relatively quickly, I mean, within a few days to maybe a week or two, with just a few simple tactics and techniques that we repeat over time. Now, that doesn't fix everything, right? Because what we're trying to do is, number one, get you out of pain so that you can function. Now, where a lot of people go wrong is they get out of pain and they say, I'm good. All right, now back to daily life. And then they start shoveling the chips in, and then the chips make the belly bloated, and then the bloated belly pushes down on the pelvic floor, and then the pelvic floor gets upset, and then the hips start to hurt again, right? And so once you're out of pain, the next thing to do is just say, okay, how do we lengthen the time between pain? So my goal is not to just say we're going to go from no pain to never pain. We're going to go from pain and say, hey, you used to get in pain, and when you'd have an episode, it would take you 2 months or 3 months to heal from that. And then once you were healed, you'd probably go for 4 or 5 months, right? So if that's the case, I want to get you out of pain shorter time, but I also then want to lengthen the time before another episode happens. It's ridiculous to think that you're going to get out of pain and you're never going to experience that again. I had a doctor early on in my life explain this to me that, because I'm a kid that I didn't really take care of certain parts of my body when I was younger. I didn't stretch enough. I didn't do enough strength training for my calves and my lower body. I rolled my ankle so many times playing basketball. And over time, the shape of my ankle just changed. And my doctor said, what happens is, Steve, it's kind of like a thumbprint. That injury has left a thumbprint on you. And so some thumbprints are left and you can wipe them off. Some thumbprints get put into mud and they stay there for a little bit. And then some thumbprints are essentially cast in concrete. He goes, you've rolled this ankle so many times, it's pretty much cast in concrete. And so what we want to do is we want to say, okay, you probably hurt yourself, injured yourself years and years ago. You neglected it. You were a dumb kid like I was. Then you became older. You stopped working out as much. You got weaker. You moved less. You put on 20, 30, 40 pounds of fat. And now you're putting more load on that joint that was problematic 20 or 30 years ago. Well, when that's the case, it's really hard to just say, we're going to go from no pain to never pain, right? It's not going to happen. What's going to happen is you're going to go from no pain to say, Okay, how do we lengthen the time between your next episode? And then when you have your next episode, can we get you out of pain quicker? And can we make sure that that episode is less? So let me tell you about my client, Nick. So my client, Nick, came to me and he had pretty significant pain. In fact, he'd been to doctors, been to physical therapists, nothing was working for him. And when he and I started working together, he was stiff like this all the time. We actually worked in person, but most of my programs and what I do today is online. And so I've been able to replicate all of this online. So it doesn't matter if you're like one of my clients who lives in Hong Kong or if you're here in Utah with me, I can work with you wherever. But Nick was a guy that I was able to work with in person. Very stiff when we started meeting because he was afraid to move. In fact, he and I'm sure some of you can relate to this. He was afraid to have somebody walk by him and bump him because of the pain that it would cause down in his back and his hips. Well, we got him out of pain. We started to get him stronger. And then about 6 to 8 months later, he had an incident come up where body seized up, tightened up, and within a couple of days, we got him out of that pain. Now, before working together, when he was in that type of pain, the intensity level was significantly higher. So if we're talking about like a scale of 0 to 10, we're talking like 9, 10, right? It was excruciating. It was really tough to live with. Now, when it happened, we're talking about an intensity level of maybe a 6 or a 7, especially when we dug into the emotional part, because the emotional part was such that he realized, hey, I'm stronger than what I was before. And so I don't have to feel the desperation. I don't have to feel the disgust. I don't have to feel the lack of hope that I can't get out of this. And so Nick then lessened some of his pain because he realized by thinking through this that this was not a no-win scenario. He had tools, he had muscle, he had the ability to develop himself and get out of pain quicker, which we did. We got him out of pain in about 2 or 3 days. Now, after that, he has not had pain. And so the length of time in between and the length of time that he experienced the pain was significantly less. Now we're on to the final point, which is to build a bulletproof system of movement so that you don't fall back into that. As you age, you continue to get better like a fine wine, rather than what most people do, which is degrade and turn into a dad bod. Now, I want to talk about some uncomfortable truths as we come towards the tail end of this masterclass. These are some things that you might intuitively know, but maybe nobody's told you, okay? Number one is that excess fat makes the problems harder to solve. If you have a hip, and let's say that I'm just going to do a drawing here for you. So let's say that here's what your body looks like. You've got a head and you've got your cervical, your thoracic, and your lumbar spine. And then your hips are here and they're angled at a certain angle. I can't do this backwards with my pen. There we go. Now, if you are of your high school weight, right, the load and the pressure that comes down on your body is pretty much straight down, and these curves in your spine and the angle of your hip is able to handle that pretty well. Now, you'll see a lot of videos online these days. I don't know why this has become such a big thing where people talk about your anterior pelvic tilt and how to fix it and yada, yada, yada. Look, the reality is everybody has an anterior pelvic tilt. I've never met a human being where when I've measured them, they were posterior. That just doesn't exist. The people who say your back problem, your hip problem is because of your anterior pelvic tilt, it's not. Like, there's no research to back that up. And I'm going to tell you, for the past 25 plus years that I've been working with people on this issue, it's not about how much your hip is angled forward. It's more so of the relation to your spine, and then is one hip pulled more than the other, right? So we have two sides to the hip, and then right in the middle, we have the sacrum. Well, what I find with people when I measure them is that one hip tends to tilt forward a little bit more than the other hip does. And this creates a torsion across the hips and, creates this rotational issue here in the back. Now, where does the body fat come into play? Well, if you start to carry, let's say, an extra 20 pounds right here in the front. Imagine what that load is going to do to your body. You now have pressure that's pulling you in this direction and pulling down against your hips and your lower back. Of course, you're going to have more pain. Talk to any woman that is in their 6th or 7th month of pregnancy, and they will tell you, my hips hurt, my low back hurts. Guys, if you've put on belly fat, it's the same thing. Excess fat makes the problem harder to solve. If we don't fix this and get you leaner, if we don't lose body fat, it's very, very difficult to get you out of pain. Oh, but Steve, my shoulder hurts. It's a shoulder issue. Yeah, think about what that belly is doing to the shoulder. What's happening up here in the shoulder if the belly is pulling you down? Well, that hunches you forward more, pulls your shoulder out of a normal, natural position. And because the head always has to look, or the eyes always have to look forward, pardon me, you get hunched forward and you do this because you got to look. And so then it puts compression on the back of your neck. And so your entire chain, your entire system goes out of balance if you have excess fat. Now, the other challenge that you run into is excessive fat means that you more likely than not are not working out on a regular basis, and you probably have lost muscle. Okay. Muscle is the organ of longevity, to quote Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. If you lose muscle, you are significantly weaker at the joints that interact with that particular muscle. And so if you've lost muscle in your lumbar spine, or excuse me, in your lumbar muscle, musculature, those lower back muscles are not as strong and cannot hold you in a normal natural posture very well. If you've lost muscle in your chest and your back and your shoulders, well, those joints still need to function, but they can't function the same way because you've lost muscle. You don't have the ability to generate force and be protective. The number one thing that you can do to protect a joint is make the muscle that interacts with it stronger. So oftentimes when I start working with people, they've got issues up in their shoulder, like my shoulder hurts. Well, it's because you've lost muscle. You have no biceps, and your biceps, your triceps, your shoulders, like there's nothing there. There's no protection here. And so yes, when you go pick something up and you lift it, you're putting direct pressure up into the shoulder. You're yanking on that biceps tendon, and it constantly pulls and pulls and pulls because you've got no muscle here to hold on to what you need to hold on to. So excess fat just creates this cascade effect where all of your problems become harder. So if you're not addressing the body fat loss, and I'm not talking about going and getting a poke to drop the fat, because the one big thing that we absolutely know at this point, regardless of what whoever it is that's trying to sell you the GLP-1 injection is, it is overwhelming evidence is showing that if you are doing GLP-1 to lose weight, you are going to lose muscle as well. As soon as you lose muscle, you have shortened your life, and you've made all these problems much harder to address. In fact, it's scary to me to see what's happening. Years ago, guys, I used to joke that I loved CrossFit because they would send me a lot of clients, because everybody got into CrossFit. They're super excited. They've got horrible posture. They're going from, driving a desk all day to then trying to do a clean and press like this. And then they would come see me because they were injured. So I loved CrossFit, right? It's the same thing. I love Hoka, because Hoka makes people run on clouds, and then their body doesn't function very well. And so I deal with a lot of knees and back and hip issues because guys are walking around in these big, massive clouds. So I love CrossFit and Hoka because they send me a lot of clients. I'm scared to say I love GLP-1 because it's sending me clients, but that's the reality. I don't love it. But what is happening is I'm picking up clients because they've lost muscle and then they're in pain. So yes, losing fat does or is important, but if you do it that way, you're more likely than not going to run into this issue. Now, the second uncomfortable truth is stretching a weak muscle will make the problem worse. So if you have very weak hamstrings and you go stretch them, you're just going to cause more pain. It's not going to fix the issue. If we don't strengthen the muscles relative to what they need to be for your joint to be healthy, stretching makes it worse. So if you're in pain and you go join a yoga class, um, yeah, let me know. We'll be talking in about 6 months. The third uncomfortable truth is you're not in an NSAID deficiency. A nonsteroid anti-inflammatory, you're not in a deficiency of that. You're not aspirin deficient. You are not ibuprofen deficient. And so trying to fix the problem by just taking a pain reliever will not fix the problem. Okay. So you're not in a deficiency. And if you just mask it by taking some sort of pain medication, it's not going to fix it overall. Now, there is a caveat to that, which we'll talk about if you and I ever start working together. And please don't take this for that I'm against Western medicine or that I think you shouldn't take pain medication. That's not it. I'm just saying that if that is your go-to, you're never going to fix your problem. The next uncomfortable truth is that there is no supplement and there is no pill that is going to fix your pain. When you ran into Sally at the health food store and she told you that this special herb will make you feel better, it's not the case. There's no supplement or pill that is going to fix the pain. If we don't get to the root of what you're dealing with, you will absolutely never get to better functional movement. Now, can supplementation, can food, can utilizing different compounds help you? For sure. Yeah. I mean, if you're taking, let's say, a curcumin, which is an anti-inflammatory that comes from turmeric, can that help to support? Well, sure. But if you're taking curcumin for reduction of pain and reduction of inflammation, and yet you are like this guy in the picture, drinking the beer and eating the popcorn, curcumin does nothing. If you're not moving, if you're not building muscle, if you're not doing the things, you are just wasting your time. In fact, it's very, very rare that I will talk to clients about any type of supplementation at the beginning of us working together. Now, the caveat to that is that if you are not sleeping, I may put you on some supplements to help you to get some sleep. We might be talking about magnesium or GABA or valerian or a sleepy time tea or lavender or things that are very calming, very natural to help you to get to sleep. That's the only time that we may be talking about a supplement, because we're not taking the supplement to get you to pain. We're taking the supplement to put you to sleep, and sleep will help to heal the problem, right? Now, this next uncomfortable truth is that people don't want you to know is that the supplement industry preys on you when you are in pain. When you're in pain, you'll do just about anything to get out of pain. And that's the problem, is you will go buy powders, pills, you'll go get a poke, and supplement industry is going to prey on your pain. It's insidious. It's despicable from my perspective, and it's something that I've seen for 25, almost 30 years of being in this business. So please, please, please be cautious. If something is sold to you as a fix-all, just run the opposite direction. There is no such thing. There's nothing that is going to fix it all. Getting out of pain is a multifaceted approach that takes a very holistic view, as we've talked about. And so just understand the supplement industry preys on people who are in pain. It's predatory at best, right? And finally, your doctor, any other healthcare professional, they're there as your guide and counselor, but they're not there to tell you exactly what to do all the time. You're in charge, right? Doctors are trained in Western allopathic medicine. Health and fitness professionals like myself are trained in movement and nutrition. A naturopath may be trained in naturopathic remedies. Each one of these professionals are trained in their specific area. It's important to listen to them and then take that into the context of everything we talked about today. So you're in charge. You are the project manager of addressing the pain. So don't just take someone's advice or someone's word for it. Take this framework that we're talking about and then utilize that to help you to get out of pain. I want to tell you another client story about a client of mine, Dan. Dan was dealing with a couple of issues, some back pain and some shoulder pain. And as you look at his posture from behind, you can see a couple of things that really stand out. He was a pretty fit looking guy. If you were to see him on the street, he's a taller guy. And so you would, so he carries his weight well. But you can see how his shoulders were rolling forward, the winging of the scapula on the picture on the left. And then the way that the scapula pulls apart and then sits up very high. This created a significant amount of pain in the neck, the shoulders, and the back. Again, he would be a guy that you would see as perceivably fit and healthy. Now, one other thing I want to point out in the before picture is look at how in the love handle area and below, it just flattens out, right? And this is a common theme that I see with guys is you have no butt. You have no glute muscles, or you have very, very small glute muscles that don't fire and function well. And so if below the hips, you don't have a lot of muscle, the majority of the pain and pressure is going to go into your lower back, right? And if that's tight, then it's going to send tightness up into that mid back and the neck, and you're going to have this constant pain all along the backside of your body. So you can see that just about 16 weeks later, we had built a significant amount of muscle. Now, what was really cool is we did this. I want to point this out because a lot of people will say, well, yeah, but I'm this and I'm that. Well, Dan was a type 1 diabetic. And so we had to address his nutrition goals in a way that met with his needs, right? We were really, one of the biggest things we were trying to solve, not just his pain, but we were trying to say, hey, how do we get your A1C into levels that are better than where you're currently at? How do we get you eating so that you can manage your diabetes better? But also help you to live in a way that is really functional, right? So I have what I call my nutrition archetype system, where this is something for free. If you haven't heard of this, you can go to my website and click on the nutrition archetype. So easiest way to get there is becomeaninvolvedman.com or theexecutivefitnesscoach.com and go to the nutrition archetype page. What this does is you'll go through a quiz, a little bit longer quiz, but at the end of it, you're going to know how you are wired psychologically, socially, and emotionally to interact with food. And so you're going to find out that you're one of a few different archetypes, and those things generally don't change, or at least they don't change very much. So for instance, if you're a creative archetype, that means that you're driven for novelty and you're driven for creativity. And so if you went on a standard bodybuilding diet of chicken and rice and broccoli, you'd make it 3 days. But creative archetypes can get in better shape if they structure their life towards that creativity. So I won't go too much into that, but just understand that the first thing that we did is we started to address Dan's nutrition to meet his diabetic needs, but also meet his nutrition archetype. So through this process, and then making sure that the program supported both the postural improvements and getting him out of pain, he was able to lose 8 pounds of fat and gain 7 pounds of lean muscle mass in the 16 weeks. At the time, he was a head of marketing for a tech company. He said, I now feel like I belong in any room. My presence is felt when I walk in. He also said, relative to how he interacted with his kids and his family, he goes, I don't even worry when I go to the pool when I should take my shirt off, right? Because that was always, okay, what's the right time? I can take it off, then I can go jump in the pool before anybody sees me. He goes, I just do it when we get there, and not like I'm trying to show off because I'm a dad, I got little kids, but because I feel confident, because I'm standing taller, because my body feels better. Again, Dan, I'm sure like many of you, is not a guy that is trying to show off, and he's not a guy that's trying to build a body that that's going to live on the cover of a magazine. He wants to be strong, fit, and healthy for life. So now that we've talked about all of these pieces and we come up to the tail end of it, what's next? Well, if you just spare me a few minutes here, I want to talk a little bit about what my method is. So there are a few things that we didn't cover today. We didn't cover a lot of rest and recovery. We didn't cover a lot of nutrition. We didn't cover stress and stress management. And we didn't cover how to build a program that fits your overall lifestyle. We touched on nutrition archetype, but understand there's a few more layers that I build into any program that I develop for clients. And so there are a lot of things that we didn't have time to cover today. So, what are some action steps? Well, if you want to start to move forward with something and you say, hey, Steve, I'm in pain, I want to get out of pain, here's what you do. Number one, we need to start working together and get a movement assessment to determine what your limitations, your faults, and your pain are, right? What are the root causes of the pain, not just where is it showing up? And then we need to get an annual plan put together. Now, if you start with me and let's say you sign up and you do, I do my coaching in 3 different phases. You either sign up for 16 weeks, 6 months, or a year at a time. So even if you sign up for 16 weeks at a time, I am maniacal and I will build out your plan for a year, just in case you decide that you want to continue on for the entire year. But I do that because it helps me to see where do I want you to go. I stole this from the author J.K. Rowling when she started to write the Harry Potter books. She said that she wrote backstories for every single character, that even those that just show up for a blip in the book, she needed to know what the backstory was. Well, I do the same thing with my clients. I'll build out a year program for you, even if we're only working together for 16 weeks, just because it helps me to know where you're going. It also helps because, if you only sign up for 16 weeks and you get through it and you're like, yeah, okay, I feel better. Now we know where to go, and it just makes it easy to dovetail forward, right? So we get an annual plan put together that addresses your goals, your needs, and your faults. So think about the alignment or the balance that we talked about. And we utilize what I call the Milo principle. So we're not trying to make dramatic or drastic changes all the time. We're just slowly adding to the program so that it feels like you are just getting better consistently. Then we train your body and we train your mind. So one of the unique things about the way that I coach my clients and why I only work with business owners, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and doctors, people who are high-performing people, is because they understand the power of the mind. I used to deal with just about everybody in the health and fitness and weight loss realm. And I decided, after spending a significant amount of time in health and fitness and being a traveling executive myself, that I just resonate really well with top professionals and people who are a little more sophisticated in their thinking. And we can have more in-depth conversations about how all of this fits into your life. And so you'll be doing exercises that then we couple with some mental training so that we can take you to the next highest step, wherever it is that you're at. You could be like one of my clients who is growing and expanding his business and who bought a new building, and the business is growing dramatically and he just wants to double down on what he's doing. Or you could be like another client who has more money than he will ever need. And the biggest question is, how do I keep myself healthy? And then what is my new currency in life? Because money is no longer my currency. I need a different currency, right? So wherever you're at, we start to train your body and your mind to move you in that direction. So my consulting is based on what I call the psychosocial emotional model. We understand what your psychology is, what your social structure is, who do you interact with on a daily basis, whether it's just family and people at work, or whether you have a larger social structure, religious or otherwise, that you connect with. And then where are you emotionally? What are the patterns that we see consistently in you? And so your entire plan is built around your psychosocial emotional model. And I've got a few tools that help us to assess what that is. Now, I will tell you, you're never going to evolve unless your plan is set to address the issues that come with age. You see, while we can continue to improve with age, we can stay lean, we can get stronger. You know, as well as I do, that more demands are placed on you from work, family, etc. But you also have decreased recovery capabilities. You used to be able to eat, if you were like me, when you were in your early, late teens and early 20s. I would go to 7-Eleven at the base of the canyon and I would get a few chocolate donuts and a huge Dr. Pepper. And I could just down pizza, donuts, and Dr. Pepper all day long, go to work, go to school, go climbing, go lift. And I was great. And I didn't put on an ounce of fat. I stayed healthy and fit. I can't do that anymore. If I look at a chocolate donut, it starts to creep into my body. So we have decreased recovery capabilities, right? So you're never going to evolve unless we address those issues. You're never going to evolve unless your plan involves movement that keeps you feeling youthful as well. You're never going to evolve unless your eating plan is sustainable and it's not just a diet. And you're never going to evolve unless you address the psychosocial emotional blockers that keep you from repeating these old behaviors and patterns. You're also never going to evolve unless you understand what it means to be young, vibrant, and energetic for life as you continue to age. One of my clients, Paul, I believe he was 65 when he said this. The financial investment I'm making in my health with you is the best investment I'm currently making. Now, this is coming from a financial advisor, so he was miserly in where he would put his money. But what Paul realized that having he and his wife, and then he started to pay for his kids to work with me, was the best financial investment that he could make, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And a sick person only wants one thing. Paul wanted health. He had the money, and he wanted health for himself, his wife, and his kids. So I'm curious. Do me a favor. As we come to the tail end of this, drop me comments. I want to know what your biggest takeaway is. That's very helpful for me, because I go through those as I build these masterclasses out, and I try to put them into future masterclass so that I can help you out. So whether we work together or not, or whether you just like watching the masterclass and you get some value from this, I want to make sure I continue to provide that value. So do me a favor, drop it in the chat, send me a DM, let me know what your biggest takeaway was. And if you are ready to evolve, let's talk about what those next steps would look like. So it starts with a conversation. How we get started is we do what I call a bottleneck identification call. I will put a link here so that you can book one and we will talk. The reason I call it a bottleneck is that you are a very smart person. You understand your job, you understand your career, you understand your life, you understand your kids, you understand all of your responsibilities, and yet you may not understand what is the bottleneck that's keeping you from moving to the next iteration of your growth and progression, or your evolution. Well, we identify what that bottleneck is, and then we determine whether or not it's going to be effective for us to work together. From there, we may follow it up with a strategy call. Now, sometimes we do the bottleneck and the strategy call together. I may have people that jump in, they say, hey, here's what my problem is. Give me the rundown on your program. Let's figure it out. Let's get going, right? So sometimes I combine bottleneck and strategy together. At that point, then we create a custom strategy plan, and we start on your path of personal evolution. So we are running a little bit long on time today, guys, and I apologize that I tend to be a little bit long-winded with some of these things. I think that's the curse and the blessing of loving what you do for a living is when you get excited, you tend to go all in on some of those. So if you do have some questions, what I'm going to ask is that you drop them in the chat, or that you send me an email or a message on any of the social platforms that you found me on, that you got to this with, and I will make sure that I answer all of those to you personally. If you have a question that is a little bit more complex, I may even ask you if we could just jump on a quick call so that I can get some more clarity and answer that question for you. I want to make sure that you got the value out of today that you were looking for. So whether you joined me live today or whether you are watching this later on because we've found each other and you want to get out of pain, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to sit and chat with very smart, very intelligent people like yourself. And I look forward to talking further. So I will see you on a call, hopefully soon. And I'm really looking forward to continuing the conversation with you. So with that, I'm going to give you some time back today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.